Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another Saturday live, the Victor's Business Show. The show wherein you come in and learn a lot about business and the different facets of business. Thank you, and welcome. But first of all, before we proceed, I would like to sort of encourage you to share this video to your friends and family because words, I've always said, words are very powerful. There could be just one word that we say tonight that will change the life of somebody. So it's very, very, very important. Sharing is caring, like they say. So please share the video. I'm going to do it myself with, if possible, host a party. It's a weekend. If you have your champagne, your wine, just grab somebody because today is going to be a very beautiful night because I've got some beautiful guests tonight. So this is the Victor's Business and show, and the presenter is Dr. Alfred Better. And actually, this is brought to you by the Victors and is powered by Voice of Saloon, your number one TV station. Right. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about different things. But before we go ahead, like I said again, I just want to emphasize that you should share the video. And before we actually start proper, so I've shared mine already. And if you have shared, just give me a thumbs up so that I know that you've shared. Because it's very important. And also it's very important to note that you can call in at any given point in time. If you want to make a call or ask questions or contributions on the topic tonight, you are definitely welcome to do so because we are all here to learn. We are only facilitating. When I say we, because I have a lot of guests here. But again, our topic today is going to be based on a book that was written by one of my mentors. It's The Learning Leader and the 5 perspectives of change leadership. Right. Had me right. The learning leader and the 5 perspectives of change leadership. Now, the key word there really is leadership or what you call a leader. Now, but before I bring in my main guest for tonight, I would like to bring in my niece, who actually will be I'm going to ask her what leadership is all about because they say catch them when they are young. So I'm going to just kind of cycle to have her own perspective for who a leader is, that we can take the conversation from there. So I will invite the person, then you want to push a bit. Come closer, please. You want to say your name to the audience, please? What's your name?
My name is Gashel.
What's the full name, please?
Gashel Fatima Precious Kuna Cherry.
Wow, that's a very long name. Easy. Now, tonight we're talking about leadership, right? I just want to hear your perspective of who is a leader. And I want you to really speak very loud because the people need to hear you. What's your definition of a leader? Who is a leader to you?
A leader is like someone who leads you to what you're doing and like tells you what to do. So you can also become a leader.
So you are saying basically a leader is someone who instructs you. So this is your own understanding of leadership, okay? What makes a good leader?
If you want to be a good leader, you have to learn from the people that you teach. And yeah.
Yeah? All right. So we've heard from this little girl. As far as she's concerned, leadership is about really someone who instructs. And I'm sure a lot of us think that's what leadership is about. So it's very interesting to actually learn from you. And thank you very much. I think your moment ends now because I'm having a bigger fish. All right. So you want to say good night to everyone?
Good night.
All right. So smile. Fantastic. I'll see you later. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys. It's really good to hear the perspective of who your leader is from you as well. So you can call in at every given point in time. Okay. Now, at this point, I want to invite my guest tonight. My guest tonight is actually a mentor. He's been a mentor for several years, and he has actually mentored me to the person I am today, one of my many great mentors. But I'm not going to actually attempt to introduce him, like sort of describe him. I will let him come on board and actually introduce himself, because if I do this, I might be doing him not doing him a favor, because there's so much things that are good about this gentleman. So I want to welcome Dr. Chuma Ososhuku, who is the author of The Learning Leader and the 5 Perspectives of Change Leadership. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the Victor's Business Show.
Thank you, Dr. Mbete. I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you very much. Wow. Okay. So, Dr. Chuma, before we delve into the book itself, because tonight really is about leadership, and the problem I think we have in Africa is leadership. So, in as much as this is a business show, we talk about leadership in business. But again, I think tonight we have to take the argument a bit further, and I'm sure you did that in the book anyway. So, leadership in Africa specifically, and the role of a leader and what you should do. So, questions will be around that. But I want you to describe yourself. Give us a little bio, your beautiful bio. Who is Dr. Chuma?
Thank you for asking. But I wouldn't want to take so much time of the program. I would just like to say that I am someone who has learned over time on how to serve people. And through the process of serving, I get to know what the people want, what they need, where they're up to, and then I learn how to help them get to where they're going. Like you said, my name is Chuma. I'm Dr. Chuma Osuchukwu, and I am a former Nigerian diplomat. I have worked in many fields, both within and outside of the academia. I was in government for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was in the financial sector. And prior to that, I was in broadcasting. So I'm a man of varied paths. And you know, my interest in writing and publishing. And the book you introduced earlier in the program is simply one of those materials, indeed, one of the latest outputs from my writing and from my publications, yes.
Right. Okay.
So currently, I am into a number of things. Primarily, I am into lecturing, and I'm into executive leadership. And I am the founder of the Apex Center for High Performance Leadership here in London. So that in brief. And this center is all about developing leaders and impacting lives. That's what we do. And that is the leaders who have passed through us know how impacted they have been, and they've gone on to impact so many others. So in brief, that's me.
That's very brief. That's as brief as you can. You know, there's a lot of things to discuss tonight, but like you said, if we had to do that, that's like taking the whole of the program. So thank you very much for that short, inspiring bio that you've just given us. Now, let's go to the book, actually. The title of the book is The Learning Leader and the 5 Perspectives of Change Leadership. So just for my audience, tonight, that's going to be our topic and the center of discussion. Now, this book, first of all, is a second edition. It means that this is the second time it's been republished. You can actually find it on Amazon. It's very cheap, actually, for £24. I was really amazed that it's as cheap as that. Now, the book is actually it's a practical leadership guide. Practical leadership guide. So it's not really purely on theory. So I understand some of you who will be looking at us might think this is all based theory because it's a doctor talking. No, this is a practical leadership guide, and it's based on current leadership issues. So if your country is facing some leadership issues, it's about time you listen to this to the end, please, because you will learn a lot. And also, it has about 21 chapters. I stand to be corrected. There are topics on leadership and culture. In other words, how our culture impacts leadership. And we'll be looking at the role of a leader in a given situation, in the business, in the country. And again, if you want to be a leader, there will be like 7 core habits of a learning leader. That's the key thing that I like, learning leader. So what are the 7 core habits? I like the number 7 because I've written a book around the 7 highly successful people as well. And also we'll be looking at the 4 components of self-evaluation. In other words, you're looking at how you evaluate yourself. And there's what we call the 3 P's of belief system. It's all in the belief. And I will perhaps expand on that later. And the 3 environments in which leadership operates, And also we'll be looking at leadership at family level, not just at business level or at organizational level. We're also looking at leadership at your family level. If you are a parent looking at us right now, you are a leader. And how do you go about that? This is exactly what it will be about. But to kickstart the whole conversation, I would like to ask a simple question, sir. Now, you could have written on different topics. You could have written on culture. You could have written on management. You could have written on time management, on different things. But you've chose specifically at this occasion to choose leadership. Why leadership?
Because I think that everything in human endeavor revolves around leadership. It is my conviction that leadership is a pivot in which everything revolves. It doesn't matter what it is, the circle it is, whether on a small scale, on a very large scale. Leadership actually provides the guidance that leads to productivity or to high performance. I believe that leadership, everything rises and falls with leadership. That's why I chose to write on that pivotal topic.
So you're saying if we are to change the world, we should really focus on developing more leaders. Is that what you're saying? Because the thing is, we have a lot of problems in our communities. Like, I'll give you a case study, Sierra Leone, where I'm from right now. So a lot of issues going on right now in our country, in the past, present, and even the future seems to be bleak. I don't want to be political because, but the truth of the matter here is, we have got a leadership problems in Africa. I don't just want to focus Sierra Leone. I use Sierra Leone because that's what the country I know better. Now, and you've taken a sensitive topic. And this topic, really, the reason why I love it is because you focus more on a learning leader. But let's just look at a simple definition, because our audience are people who wants to learn. So who is a leader to you? What qualifies a leader? Who is a leader? What's your definition of a leader?
A leader is someone who has the heart and the habit of learning. And I use that word not in the very least, not in the very least. I use it in the sense of real service. Without learning, I believe there is no leadership. And one of the reasons why I have entitled this book, The Learning Leader, is because learning underpins everything in leadership. A leader who learns is a leader who you would expect to be effective. In other words, a learning leader is an effective leader. What is the relationship between leadership and learning? Massive. It's just like saying, what is the relationship between food and human beings? Yes, without food, I don't think we can exist for so long. So that is the reason why I think, answering your question, that to be a leader, or somebody I consider a leader, I am looking for a learner.
Right.
That's precisely my definition of it.
Wow. So I've looked at the 2H. You perhaps may have not seen it this way. So it's a H choir. Leadership is about a heart and habit of learning. Yeah. And that's very interesting to say, because the truth is, if we look at our African leaders, for instance, organizational leaders, political leaders in Africa, most of them define themselves. Once they are there, they think, from my understanding, they think they know it all kind of mentality. And because they are now a leader, they stop taking advice or learning for itself. So what would be your comment towards that? So we have a lot of those around that have stayed in power for so long, or stayed in organization in the position for so long, and they stop learning. So what would you say towards that? What's sort of responsible for that? And how can you sort of advise us to move away from that kind of mentality to a learning leader mentality?
I get asked this question very, very often. And my answer has always been the same. My answer is primarily that the bane of African leadership is that presumption that the leaders know. And if it is a presumption coming from subordinates, I would understand that. But when a leader gets to have that mindset that I know it all, I know how to figure things out, I know how to do it, then I see a very, very fundamental error in that leadership. I see a leader who will not last as one, and I must make this distinction very clearly that leadership has little or nothing to do with position. You can be in a leadership position, but you have not acquired the leadership skills. You have not acquired the right mindset. You have not acquired the disposition of a leader. That would not make you a leader. It simply makes you a sitting duck. Now, but if you may not occupy any position for any leadership position, but you still function as a leader, and an effective one at that. So it's about the mindset. It's about getting to know that leadership has to have the anchor of learning in it for it to be progressive. There has to be authenticity. There has to be the character needed to build and to sustain the type of leadership we need in Africa. The thing I think about African leadership is not that there are no leaders. Africa is blessed with so many leaders, so many leaders. But what we lack in Africa is simply the learning mindset. We lack that learning mindset because of this presupposition that you mentioned earlier. When people think that they know how to handle it, then that actually denies interdependence. It denies teamwork. It denies cooperation and coordination of activities in leadership. That's what it does.
Right. Very interesting. And one of the words that the key words that I actually learned from that is that leadership is about the mindset. And I'll give you a little analogy, and perhaps this perfectly fits into what you're trying to describe. The lion is not the fastest in the jungle. The lion is not the strongest in the jungle. The lion is not the largest in the jungle. But when the lion sees the elephant, what comes to mind is food. When the elephant sees the lion, what comes to mind is eater. So lion has all limitations that prevents him to be a leader in the jungle. So, but however, what makes the lion a leader comes back to what you just said, the mindset. It's all in the mindset, and I perfectly agree with that. So it's not how skillful you are. You may have all the attributes, but if you don't believe in yourself or have the right mindset, according to what you just said, you will not be a good leader. So thank you very much. And this takes me next to the next question, and I want to read it up because this is actually in the book. You talked about the current leadership issues, and I want you to discuss some of these issues in the context of Africa and organizations, both at the government level, political level, because our audience, I will tell you, love politics. So please sort of touch on politics as you go along. Make some comparative analysis if you like, but also touch on organizational leadership. What are some of the current and contemporary issues of leadership in Africa? Because I understand you are a diplomat. You've worked as a diplomat before for the Nigerian government in different structures. You've even in the UK. So tell us more. I'm willing to learn, and we are also willing to learn from your knowledge and wisdom, sir.
One of the basic contemporary issues links up with globalization. And it also dovetails into the concept of change. And because change is a constant, because change does not discriminate where it happens and where it doesn't. It has a spiraling effect. It might start from one part of the globe, but it will eventually end in the other part of the globe. An example is, a typical example is this. When in 2008 we had a global financial crisis, it didn't start from America, it didn't start from the UK, it didn't start from Russia, it started from far away Thailand. And everybody would say, what has Thailand got to do with the rest of the world that would bring about such a crippling economic situation? But it did. It's the effect of change. So every leader, every country, every organization must understand the impact of change and then prepare yourself on how to either lead change or manage change.
So yes. Lead change or manage change. Before you
yes.
just move on to the next level, what's the key difference? Because we need to just get this as we go. What's the difference between leading change and managing change?
Now, you lead change when you anticipate change and you prepare for it. You lead change when you initiate the change. So you have control over certain factors in the change process. But you manage change when change just comes on you. It happens. Even with the best planning available, change can still come unexpectedly. But the ability and the robustness in reacting and responding to that change makes you a manager of change.
Okay, so basically, leading change means you're being proactive. So you anticipate the issues and you kind of do some scenario planning and say, if this happens, this is exactly. So you don't wait until it happens. Whereas managing change means you just wait until it happens and you start running head and skelter to manage it.
Yes.
Very beautiful distinction.
And this is one of the problems we find in African leadership. In the developed world, you see attempts, you see very conscious attempts in leading change. You will find countries developing 20, 25 years development plan, economic development plan. We are still in 2019, but some countries have already gone ahead to plan for 2030, 2050. That's what I call leading change. Now, how many African countries would you tell me that have embarked on this kind of economic exercise? But we're expecting to be great in Africa. And indeed, there are great materials in Africa. But how are we utilizing the simple principles of leadership to ensure that we are at par with the developed world? How are we doing it? It comes down to leading change. It comes down to formulating models. And in this book, indeed, you would have seen that I formulated a model called the Succeed model on how to tackle change to make you proactive.
Tell us more about the Succeed model as we go along, please. I don't want to. So some of the key things that I actually want to discuss tonight, that you just kind of went through them as you go through your conversation. So tell us more about the Succeed model and how we can learn. Break it down for our audience so much that they can adapt it in their families or in their situation.
The Succeed model, the word succeed is a word that comes from the first letters of the things that a good leader of change would take into consideration when, change is either being initiated or has come on an organization or a country. But I would want as many people to read it in my book than telling it, giving it away to everybody on this program, but
That's
there is one silent point I would want to talk about right here, and that is the concept of culture in terms of dealing with change, either leading change or managing change. That's a very salient, very, very silent, but it's so important, a part of change that you cannot ignore it. And that has been the result of many corporate marriages. We've seen corporate marriages, the mergers, and we've seen the acquisitions, and we've seen a very high percentage of these corporate marriages failing, not because of the skills, lack of skills, not because of the financial basis, but we have seen them fall flat on the basis of culture.
Okay. So
alignment of culture.
Okay, so what is culture itself? Because I'm sure we're looking at two aspects here: organizational culture and national culture. Just a bit, break it down again. Like I said, we need to kind of break the concepts down for our audience so that we can tend to understand some of these terminologies as we go along. And what is culture, and how is culture related to leadership? Because it's very good to for us to make the connections between these two teams.
Okay. It is absolutely difficult to define culture as it is. Attempts have been made here and there, but one of the easiest definitions of culture, even though it has its own limitations, is what Boer did in 1966 when he said that this is the way we do things around here. Yes. Culture is the way we do things around here. Yes. And we know that Deal and Kennedy have gone ahead to popularize that saying, that definition that came from Boer in 1966. Now, but it still has its own limitations. The way we do things around here does not, for example, tell us how culture is formulated. It doesn't tell us how culture comes in. It tells us what happens with culture. So that's one of the limitations of that definition. But it is a working definition. It's a definition you can use to actually get an idea of what culture is all about.
Okay, so this is very interesting, because I want to take an example of someone who comes overseas and have seen the good things about how things are run here effectively and smoothly, and you go back home and you have all these good plans. I've seen a lot of people actually come here, being tamed, they know the ins and outs, they know exactly what to do. They've been pioneering for things to be happening in their country. But they go back to the country and they get given positions and they become worst. Now, you've rightly said that culture is the way things are done around here. So it means that, for instance, if in Sierra Leone, our culture is about, if I want to do something, I need to bribe. Example, just giving an example. It means that that sort of way of doing things in that country will affect leadership itself. Is that the kind of connection you're trying to make? The way we do things around each country can impact the leadership that is in those countries.
I look for the day that the leaders of African nations would imbibe and develop the kind of character that is formidable and robust enough to resist corruption, to resist bribery, to put the agenda of the nation above their personal agenda. I look for the day that the African leader will be so committed to the interest of the people that are being led that they would deny their personal agenda in respect to corporate or national agenda. What can move the country forward? When we talk about culture, and you get into a system that bribery, corruption have been normalized, there is nothing wrong with it, or nobody seems to see that things are wrong with this way of doing things. And nobody is interested in changing that system because the restraining forces are heavier than the changing agents. And so they give in. Now, we need to come to a point where we must develop that resilience as leaders to say, if it takes my last blood to ensure that my country changes under my watch, when my legacy becomes more important to me, and the legacy I'm talking about is not the legacy of bribery and corruption, it's the legacy of goodwill, the legacy of selfless service, the legacy of economic buoyancy. When my legacy becomes, as a leader, more important to me than my personal aggrandizement, then I can tell you, Dr. Mbete, that a leader has risen in Africa. And that is the kind of leader we're looking for.
Fantastic. Very good summary of some of the issues you've covered already. But one would say, for instance, before people become leaders, or let's say before they occupy a position, because as far as leadership is concerned in Africa, it's about people who occupy positions. Let's for 1 minute, let's just agree that leadership is about position, occupying position. Now, it is the individual that occupies the position. Let's just give an example. But that individual, actually, before he or she becomes a leader occupying the position, is normally a good person. It's normally someone who has, like what you're saying right now, who is selfless, who wants to serve the nation, who has seen all these good things and wants to implement it. But the sooner they go into that office, something magical happens. You've been in politics before. You know, you've been in the political realm or in Nigeria. You've seen it all under, I think, Abacha or Buhari. You've talked to presidents. Well, what really happens? Like I'm saying, I'm a good person. You know, I intend to run. If I'm given the position, my country, I become selfless. But there is something that happens when people take that position or take that mantle. Would you want to take us through this journey and see again what happens behind the scene? Why do good people become bad people in those sort of situations?
That's a good question right there. And I will take you to the reason why I put the book the way I put it. This book has 6 parts to it. First, and I emphasize that, first is the person of the leader. The second is the process of leadership. The third is the purpose of leadership. The third is the process. The fourth is the place of leadership. The fifth is the principles of leadership. And the sixth is the pitfalls of leadership.
Fantastic.
Now, there's a reason why I arranged the book in that. A person, it's an organization. Let me put it this way. An organization is simply an elongated version of a person in leadership. In a country, the leader is simply a symbolic representation of that country. So what I have done is, in the first 10 chapters of this book, I have concentrated on self-leadership, on the person of the leader. I have shown the leader what is necessary for him or her to undertake first a self-analysis and a reworking of any area in his or her life that is defective or deficient. So when I talk about self-leadership, I'm talking about how you govern yourself, what your belief systems are, what character you have. I'm talking about your own personal view of life as a whole. And the reason I did that is because if you can deal with yourself, you can deal with any situation outside of yourself.
Right.
The leader who has decided to form the right character would, in spite of all, achieve the goals he or she sets out to. It's not that in the developed world, you do not see corruption. It's not that in the developed world, they are free from bribery. But remember, contract is the process of, offering and acceptance. Yeah. If there is no acceptance, if there is an offering and there is no acceptance, then no contract, is established. So it's not about people who give bribery. It's not about people who induce the leaders. It's the ability of the leader to recognize, number one, why he or she is there. Number two, the purpose he or she is there for. And number three, the ability to say no to things that should not be said. It doesn't matter the amount of persuasion that goes with it. Because when you are set for a higher goal, lesser issues do not often sway you. That is the way life is. That's where leadership is. What is your vision? What vision have you got for your country, for yourself? And then every other thing becomes subordinated to that.
Thank you very much. So really, to summarize this point, very important point is that leadership is about character building. So if you really want to become a good leader, you have to work and rework your character, because it is your character that would stand the test of time. So like you said, the problem is not really with the inducers or people who give bribes or people who try to turn you around. It's really about you as a person. How strong are you? I mean, what's your integrity? Because that's the key thing that is being lost in most leaders. Do you have integrity? Are you putting your country or your organization before the interest of everyone? Now, we would like to go through short breaks, but before that, I just want to kind of do a recap of what we're talking about for those listeners who are just joining us now. We have Dr. Chuma Suchuku, who is the author of The Learning Leader and the 5 Perspectives of Change Leadership, which is actually on Amazon at a very cheap price. But again, it's not about the money as well. It's about just the content. There's a lot of knowledge that is being shared there. So if you want to become a leader, of course, we are all leader. We are all leaders, because there's leadership trapped inside every one of us. We just have to look inward and develop those set of characters, which we'll be talking about later. So we'll go for a short break. But please don't forget to share this video, and don't forget to call in to contribute to this show. Don't forget to ask Dr. Chuma some provoking questions. Call that line after the break, and we'll continue with a lot of information. Thank you very much. Stay tuned and listen. Thank you.
Cotton Tree Pharmacy is your new trusted provider of pharmacy services in Sierra Leone. You can count on Cotton Tree Pharmacy for genuine quality brand name and generic medicines. Guaranteed refills for prescriptions issued by doctors in Sierra Leone or abroad. Door-to-door medication delivery service in Freetown and beyond. Free health education. Have you heard about our Diaspora Medicine Connect? With Cotton Tree Pharmacy's Diaspora Medicine Connect, anyone can pay for your prescription online. Bring your prescription to 17 Pademba Road. Collect an invoice. Send your invoice to your sponsor in the diaspora. Your sponsor pays for your prescription online. We deliver your medication to you. For quality prescription and medications, visit Cotton Tree Pharmacy at 17 Pademba Road in Freetown. Have questions? Call our pharmacist on WhatsApp at 030-611-664 or visit our website at www.cottontreemedicalgroup.com. Come to Cotton Tree Pharmacy. We are ready to fill your next prescription.
Hello, yes, welcome again to the Victor's Business Show. It's been very good tonight. I'm learning myself. I'm sure you're also learning. Please don't forget to share this video. Like I said, so there is someone out there who might benefit. Not might benefit, will benefit, because might is kind of will benefit from this sort of information we are sharing. So I want to go to the questions. So I'll ask the technical team to bring up the questions so that our guest tonight would attempt to answer it, not perfectly, but to the best of his knowledge. So please, question number 1 from the audience, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bete. JT said, Can you lead from the back? If yes, what's the best advice to achieving this? And the second question from JT as well, what's your take on leaders that fail to groom successors? So those are the two main questions.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Chuma. First question is, can you lead from the back?
The answer to that question would be a tactical yes. You can lead from the back. I'm leading from the back here. The reason I said tactical yes is talking in metaphorical terms, leading from the back. What that presupposes is the simple fact that there is a difference between positional leadership and personal leadership. By positional leadership, we're talking about institutional leadership. We're talking about leading from the front. We're talking about leading because you have the title of a leader. But leading from behind in this context would fall in the category of personal leadership. And personal leadership is about influence. It's not about position. It's about influence. It's about doing the right things. It's about setting examples. It's about people knowing what you stand for, even when you have no positional powers at all. So positional, personal powers would then come in, and when you give instructions or when you want people to help to achieve a goal, you'll find people buying into that idea and going with it. So yes to Jetty, you can lead from the back without being overtly positional. You can be personal.
Okay, that's fine. So let me just add a little comment to that. Thank you very much. I totally agree with that. I want to say you can lead from the back, front, side, middle, center. Doesn't really matter. What you need is influence skills. I know people need to be, and influence skills can be achieved by different sources of power. You can influence people through persuasion, like Dr. Chuma said. Just for the fact that you persuade them to do what you want them to do. That's persuasion. Or you can influence people by what we call knowledge, what we call knowledge power. Because if you're so knowledgeable and people know that you're knowledgeable, you can be influenced by that. Or by resource. There are different ways you can influence people. But I think the key word there is influence. As long as you are able to influence people with or without, whether you're there or not, whether you're in the middle, center, or center, they will be able to do things even in your absence. And then the second question that was asked was, what's your take on leaders that fails to groom successors?
Yeah, that is one of the major problems of leadership. When a leader does not make conscious effort to groom other leaders, then what that leader is interested in is developing followers. And it's all about self-aggrandizement. It's all about egotism. It's all about saying, it's all about me as a leader. But a leader who is vision-focused, result-oriented, and building for legacy would always look to see who's coming behind. And a good leader is one who develops leaders, not followers.
Yeah.
And when you develop leaders, it simply means that you are preparing people to take over from you at whatever point you stop. So any leader who does not prepare followers, subordinates, I don't like using that word followers. Yes, even though the leadership field is awash with leaders, that dichotomy of leaders and followers, I prefer using the word subordinate rather than followers. Because, like you rightly said, in chapter 1 of this, The Learning Leader, I made it clear that everybody has the seed of leadership and everybody has the seed of followership. Now, it depends on the ones you choose to develop. So for a good leader, for a leader that has legacy in his or her mind, one of his or her...
I think, Dr. Chuma, we have a caller
Yes.
on the line.
Very well.
Caller, good evening. What's your name and what's your question, please?
This is David.
Good evening, David.
How you doing, sir?
How are you? What's your contribution, please, David?
Yeah, what I want to ask the guest is if he believes that we have leaders, we have real leaders based on his experience. If he believes that there are leaders in Africa.
Okay, that's a good one.
In Africa, who are leading Africa, who are leading African countries right now. If he can point finger of anyone who have the vision and everything that he talks about in his book.
Right. Thank you very much. That question will be answered definitely. Thank you very much, David, for calling. And stay tuned while he answers the question. Thank you very much for calling. Hello, Chuma, do we have any leaders in Africa? Someone you can point to and say, you know what, this is a leader.
We have leaders. Like I said from the beginning of the program, we have leaders. What we don't have in considerable number are learning leaders. We don't have many learning leaders, but we have leaders. And in terms of what the caller, I didn't get his name, David.
David, yeah.
Yes. In terms of what David said, in my book, I used Nelson Mandela. And I was fortunate to have met Nelson Mandela while he was alive once. And I could say of course, everybody is defective in one way or the other. But I could say that Africa produced a genuine leader in Mandela in many respects. Mandela was a great leader and was willing to sacrifice his whole life for the people he led. That's what I call a leader. He served his people. His useful years were gone in prison simply because of believing in the vision that he professed. He lived the vision and everybody saw it. So that is what I call a leader. Those who are willing to put their lives on the line, not for anything, but to see that where they met their country, their nations, is not where they would leave it. They would have advanced it at least one step, one nudge, one node higher than where they met it. So David, yes, I can point to Nelson Mandela as one of such leaders.
Okay, but currently, are we saying we don't have any such learning leader? Because there's a distinction between leaders as far as you're concerned, and in the book that you've written, there is a leader and there is a learning leader. And this is really what I want to say in one sentence for the purpose of those who are joining us. What's the key difference, just one, between a leader and a learning leader? And if so, is there any learning leader in Africa as we speak?
A learning leader is a leader who reflects, a leader who learns from what the predecessors have done, a leader who determines that good is not good enough, a leader who looks at greater leadership than what he or she inherits. Now, every leader makes mistakes, but what have you learned from your mistake? Every leader fails. What have you learned from your failures? Every leader stumbles. What have you learned from your stumbling? You look at the people who were there before you. What did they do that you think, having looked at them and learned from their mistakes, that you think you can correct? That's a learning leader. I'm talking of a leader who aspires to be better than the ones that handed the baton over to him or her. That's the kind of leader I'm talking about when I talk about the learning leader. And I developed, I actually showed a number of reflective models in this book. Cobb's learning model is there, Gibbs' learning models are there. How have people taken on these models and applied it to their lives as individuals, as leaders, to make sure that the mistake they made last year, they will not make it this year. The mistake of this year will not repeat next year. That if they are confronted with the issues that they have heard yesterday, they will have something different to do or to say. That's the learning leader.
Thank you very much for making that great distinctions. There's one more question before we move on to the next questions from your book. The question is from Yaya Conte, and he says, what are the 3 important elements that makes a good leader?
There are 7 I found.
Let's dwell into 7. Or let's just talk about 3, because we definitely want people to start reading your book.
Oh, yes.
And buying them. So let's just do 4 for the sake of the audience.
No, there are 7 I identified because I was fortunate, very privileged to meet so many so-called important, I say so-called because we are talking about reputation here. And I made a distinction in this book between character and reputation. But what I'm saying is, I met successful people in course of my diplomatic mission career. And out of these, I interviewed 120 of them. And I looked at what is common to these successful people. 7 different habits came out from that exercise. Many of them, it's not now that you have the internet and you can, at the touch of a button, you can extract what you want to extract, research what you want to research. Many of those people did not know themselves, and they were in different fields of life's endeavor, but they were successful in what they were doing. And I thought there must be something here. I needed to know exactly what. So I found 7, but I would actually bring out 3 here. Like the caller, Yaya. Is it Yaya Toure?
Yaya Conte.
Yaya Conte. Yes, like Yaya Conte said. Now, the very first one, I would want every leader, both Africans, you see it everywhere, but Africans to possess is the habit of flexibility. Congealed thinking is a recipe for leadership failure. But every leader who is flexible in his or her thinking would always bounce back. It doesn't matter what the odds are and the obstacles, he or she would bounce back because of that habit of flexibility. And the second one I would tell Yaya is adaptability. Because there is always a changing landscape. I talked earlier in the program about change being one of the current leadership issues that every leader has to keep up with. I talked about change. And for you to actually embrace change and handle change, you've got to be adaptable. And the third one I would talk about here is responsiveness. Yes, if you're flexible, you may be able to adapt. But adaptation is not strong enough if there is no responsiveness. And what do I mean by responsiveness? Issues happen. How do you relate to them? How do you engage with them? And how quickly do you engage with them to deal with them?
Timing.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I think you've got your answer, and in full dose. Let's put it that way. You've got your answer in full dose. And now I wanted us to take the next, because we will be there's another program coming up, and this is very interesting. But first of all, again, I need to recap. We have with us Dr. Chuma Ochuku, and we are blessed with has written a book on leadership, which is Learning Leader and the 5 Perspectives of Change Leadership. The book can be found on Amazon. let's go and get knowledge, because this my people suffer because of lack of knowledge. And the reason why some of our leaders are trying to struggle in their position that they are, perhaps because they are not reading, or if they are reading, they are not applying some of these principles. So this could be one book you could buy for your leader in your organization as a gift, Christmas gift, whatever year's gift or birthday gift. And I'm sure I've read it, the first edition. I'm trying to grab the second edition so that we can be at par. Now, let's come to the types of subordinates. Now, I don't like, you said you don't like calling them followers, and I agree with you. I don't like calling them subordinates. And because the word subordinate means, first of all, you're sub and you're ordinate, ordinary. So two words combined, subordinary. So I don't like calling them subordinates. I like calling them partners, because in every individual, there is a leadership in every individual, like you said. So, and there's also a followership in every individual, but it depends on what you want to activate. So that's why, like you rightly said at the beginning, what makes a great leader is when you create more great leaders that are even greater than you. I'll give you an example. Recently, I went to a school where it's a purely government school, and that school has produced some leaders. Recently, our current president went to celebrate one of our occasions in the provinces, and he happened to go to our principal, who actually I think only has a first degree, but he's not actually old. But you saw that every time that these big people, they've become greater than him, go to the town, they will go to his house and pay homage. That's what I call a great leader, because he succeeded in creating more great leaders in their own right. So, but let's take your words for it. You talk about 4 types of subordinates, means people who follow the leaders. Because the problem again with Africa, I understand in terms of cause and effect. Everything you see is an effect, the cause is leadership. Now, but again, what makes a good leader again will be, let's say followers in this case, or subordinates. Let's use the term. Now, what are the different types of followers or subordinates that we have, and how can you relate that to Africa cities and organizations and the political systems, and how can a leader spot each one and manage them or lead them?
Okay. I'll leave out the names, and I want people to find out their names, but I'll describe them. I'll describe them. Now, every leader, and let me start by saying that sycophancy is real in African governance. And often some leaders are taken in by the level of sycophants around them. Now, and many of these sycophants don't do them any good, but they allow it because it massages their ego. Now, there are some classes of, and this has to do with the leader and the vision of the organization. There are some leaders who are interested in what the leader is interested, but they are not connected to the vision of the organization or the vision of the nations that the leader has articulated. They are not. They are just interested in the person of the leader. They are leader-centered, leader-focused. So whenever the leader is not there, you find them switching to whoever is there, because they are not interested in what happens in that leadership. They're not interested in what happens to that organization or to that governance. You have another set of subordinates. Now, this other set of subordinates are interested in what the vision of the organization is all about. And you will pray to have people like that. They don't care who the leader is. They want the organization to succeed. They want the country to succeed. So they are interested, not necessarily in the leader, but what the leader believes in. That is the vision the leader is all about. So they are focused on the vision Now, these kind of people are very few. If you have 2, 3, 4 of them in your government, they're a gift and you need to cherish them. Then you have other kinds of leaders. They are not interested in the leader. They are not interested in the vision, but they're interested in what they can gain, their personal agenda. The moment their agenda, whatever they set out to achieve is accomplished, they are gone. They are not committed, neither to the leader nor to the organization. And finally, you have another set of people. This set of people are interested. As long as the leader is relevant, they are around. But the moment the leader is gone, the moment the leader no longer satisfies their needs, they're gone.
Very interesting. Let's just take some, that's very interesting, sir, and I learned a lot from it. Let's just take a few more questions from our Facebook page, and then we'll try to round up. And but again, I will encourage everyone, if you really want to read in detail and get wisdom, get knowledge, develop your leadership skills that is trapped inside of you, you need to get hold of this book, because I've actually read the first version. I can't wait to get the second version and read in its entirety. So please spend some time, you know, £24, which is like $30. It's not really much for the wisdom from a brother, someone who has worked in diplomatic positions in different places around Africa. This is from an insider point of view. So one way you can even help your current leader is to buy that book and give it to your leader, and perhaps read it with them or do a summary. So it's very important. Let's take a question from Momo Vibi on our Facebook page. He said, how a bad leader can be transformed to a good leader. So you have a bad leader. How do we transform a bad leader to a good leader? Good, interesting question.
Momo, that's quite a good question. And that is what we do. That is what we do. Not necessarily that they are bad leaders, but people who want to be good leaders, people who want to be high-performing leaders. That's what we do in Apex Center for High Performance Leadership. Right. That's what we do. Now, there has to be, the primary thing is, again, I return to that, willingness. It's about the mindset. It's about the mindset. How willing is this leader you called, Momo, the one you called bad leader? How willing is he or she to shift from that bad leadership into good governance, into good leadership? That willingness has to be there. You can drag a horse to the water, they say, but you can't force it to drink water.
Precisely.
So the leader must be willing. The leader must be able to take on that heart of learning, that disposition of learning.
Okay, sir, we have a caller on the line. Okay. Caller, good evening. What's your name? What's your contribution or question, please? Hello, caller.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Yes, good evening, sir. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your question or contribution, please?
Okay, I'm calling from New York again. What I want to ask of Dr. Chuma, I believe, based on his explanation about the different type of leaders that you have just explained just now, how can a good leader, because mainly I always like to focus in Africa because that's where we have the worst leaders, particularly in the west coast of Africa. How can good leaders manage all of those type of individuals to become a better leader? What is his stake? How can he explain that to us?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Thank you again for calling. Is that David?
Yeah.
Yeah, David. Thank you very much again for calling, David. It's like David is really following you and enjoying the program. Thank you. He's a fervent I don't want to call him a follower, but partner of this program. Thank you very much, David. And Dr. Chuma, you've described the different types of subordinate. I don't want to call them subordinate, no name for them. But, you know, how can a good leader work with all of them so that they can be converted into a good person? That's a question you have to answer perhaps after you finish your sentence on what you were talking about from VB.
Yes. Now, for VB, I've actually concluded in that to say,
Okay.
yeah, to say that it takes willingness, it takes a change of mentality to move from one level of leadership to another level of leadership.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be that movement. And in fact, if Vivi and David would go to my website, it's Apex Center for High Performance Leadership, Apex Center for High Performance Leadership.org, or you use my name, chuma.org.
Okay.
You will get to the website. And if you go to the product section, you're going to see a lot of materials there that's going to actually help in answering many of these questions that the callers have called in. Now, for David, a leader must, as a matter of duty, a sense of duty, understand the kind of subordinates he or she is working with. You've got to understand them as individuals, and you've got to understand them and understand their motivation in governance. And understanding that motivation then helps you as a leader to be able to handle each of them depending on what their motivation is all about. And it takes a bit of tact. It takes a bit of learning. It takes a bit of understanding. And as soon as you are able to map out the different kinds of subordinates you have in your cabinet, if you're a head of state or a president, and the kind of, if you're a corporate leader, the people you have in both in your boardroom and the top leadership, you know, senior management level, you will be able to handle them. It's a question of understanding their motivations first and foremost, and know what to do.
And that's where, sorry to cut you there, but that's where your flexibility comes in. So you got to be flexible. Try to understand them and sort of don't use the same leadership style for every one of them. So you got to be flexible with different styles because you understand each and every one of them. It's like the theory X and Y. We'll come to that later. Just take 3 more questions on that, then we try to run up. Bakar Jabituri says, can you please give us some of the qualities a learning leader should have to unite a country? Unity is what is it? I don't know where that person is coming from, but he's saying, can you give some qualities, a sort of advice that you can for a learning leader to unite a country? So we're assuming that a country is already divided. Okay. Next question from, let me just look at the questions. 1 minute. Right. The same Jabituri, can you please give us, okay, no, it was just a repetition from there. Let's see if we have any more. 1 minute. Okay. Right. As Isatu Desi Kalon says, there are managers and leaders, but people tend to manage instead of leader where they are supposed to be leaders. How can you be exclusive leader with positive results? Don't tend to get the question right, but I think he's trying to say, how can you be an exclusive leader with positive results, or how can you be a leader with positive results? Yaya Conte says, why is Africa as a whole having difficulties producing learning leaders? What do you sorry, so many questions coming in really. What do we need to do to groom learning leaders? And the other one from, let's go back. Yes, she said she meant instead. And so those are some of the questions coming from our Facebook page, and we'll wrap up with that. And please respond to them in full dose.
Thank you very much. So let's take them one after the other. Let's start with the first one. What was the thrust of the first question?
Okay, you want me to go back to the first question?
Yes, to the first question.
Let me go back to it again. So Can you please give us some of the qualities that that learning leaders should have to unite a country?
Let's put it this way. I would say for a leader to be able to unite a divided country, the primary thing is the trust that both sides of the divide must have in him or her. That's the basic, very primary quality that the leader should be able to command trust from both divide. Then the other things that will help the leader achieve that goal is found in this book. It's called The Wise Cooper. It's a model I developed from negotiations. Many negotiations I have heard in my diplomatic missions, while in government, while as lecturer, and all other places I have had to take on negotiation skills. Now, those negotiation skills are outlined. It's called Wise Cooper, K-U-P-R, and it's right here in this book. So if the caller will get this book or give it as a gift, like you said, to the leader in question, they would be able to get the dividing factions working together again.
Okay, trust. Another question that you just said was that there are managers and leaders. That's from Asatu Desikalon. But people tend to manage instead of lead, where they are supposed to be leaders. How? The question really is, how can you be an exclusive leader with positive results? So in other words, there are managers and leaders. We know the difference between a manager and a leader, perhaps from the church on that. But how can a leader lead with positive results all the way up?
Now, many times the divide we make between leaders and managers are academic in nature. Now, for you to be a great leader, and indeed a learning leader, you have to develop both leadership skills and managerial skills. So a good leader would develop managerial skills, while a good manager would develop leadership skills. And I'll explain that. I will explain that in the sense that a leader is someone who is interested in effectiveness, giving direction. Where are we going? A manager, on the other hand, is someone who is interested in efficiency. How well do we get there? So you can see the two components working together. So they are not as dichotomized as we make them. So we see for a leader and a manager, or rather their skills are complementary and interwoven. So a good leader would develop a sense of efficiency. You just don't want to do things haphazardly, even though you know where you're going. Now, a good manager, on the other hand, must not be saddled with just efficiency, because it doesn't matter how well you do something, if you're backing the wrong tree, it will all turn out wrong.
Yeah.
If for example, I tell you, if a manager is a terrible leader, but knows how best to execute everyday routine work, the organization is going nowhere.
Sure.
But the leader who keeps pointing to the visions and the directions and doesn't care how they are achieved would be an ineffective leader as well, even though two of them are in there. So for you to be a good leader, you have to have managerial qualities. And
yes,
for you
definitely.
to be a good manager, you have to have leadership qualities.
Thank you. And I will summarize that by saying there's a book written by Kapowski. He said, and I love the way she summarized it, is a leader manages from the heart and a manager manages from the head. Two things all together. So a leader manages from the heart or the soul, whereas a manager is from the head. But again, you need the both. You need the soul and mind working together if you really want to be effective. So you cannot be a good leader without having some managerial skills. And that's exactly what Dr. Chuma has said. One last question, and we just wrap up the show because there's another show coming. It's from Yaya Conte. It says, why is Africa as a whole having difficulties producing learning leaders? This term is going viral. Learning leaders, learning leaders. Now, what do we need to do to groom such leaders since you are the pioneer? Because trust me, I've read a lot of books on leadership, and I will name you some of them. One written by Simon Sinek, starts with a why. Another one by, of course, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I've read all these books, but again, I've never come across a learning leader. So it means that you are an authority in this field, and this question is directed to you. How can we groom learning leaders in Africa, the land of our mothers?
Another way of putting it is, how can our leaders develop a learning mentality? How? How can they develop that ability to become reflective leaders? How can the leaders in question determine within themselves to position the national agenda before their individual agendas? How? How can a leader decide that I may not have money, but I want to leave a name that will outlive my leadership? I want children and generations unborn to thank me somewhere along the line because I was once a leader that did what the nation wanted, that did what kept the nation going. So, David, I am saying that it is easy to develop that learning leader habit, learning leader mindset. It's easy, and I articulated how that can be done in this book. In fact, the last 3 chapters of this book were, showing the leader, the leader, whether they want to be learning leaders, how to handle power, how to handle possession, how to handle pleasure. These 3 P's I showed in this book how every leader can handle it. I also showed the kind of environment that tests a leader, whether they have been able to master these 3 P's.
Very beautiful book. Then we will have to take some quotes and hear from you your last words in terms of what you want to say to our audience. But I want to go to technical team, take us through the slides. I've got some quotes here, which is very familiar to what you've said. The first quote here is by Donald McGonagall. It says, leadership is an action, not a position. So that's perfectly fits to what you've been saying. It's not about the position you're put in. The position is just the position as it is. It's about action, what you do in that position that really makes you a leader, not the helmet, not the title of leadership, because the truth of the matter is it's what you do with it. The next one is, this is by Seth Barkley. It says, leadership is about vision and responsibility, not power. You talked about the three P's that you talked about earlier, but it's really about vision. You having a clear vision where you want to go with the country or the organization, and taking responsibility means you actually stand up for what you've done wrong. That's what leadership is about. Don't be shy. Don't shy away from your responsibility. Again, this is another quote that says, true leaders don't create followers. They create more leaders. And this is perfectly what you described earlier. True leaders don't create followers. They create more leaders. Now, the Mugabes, I don't want to call this because they'll come after me now. Now, they were perhaps just focused on creating more followers because they want to maintain their position. That's not what we need. We need people to create more great leaders that will actually succeed them and kind of learn. Like we learn leaders, we learn from each other as we grow. The next one is from my best man, Colin Powell. Says leadership is all about people. It's not about organizations. It's not about plans. It's not about strategies. It's all about people, motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered. Wow. So it means that at the center of leadership is people. Once you put the people or the interest of your people at the center of everything you do, every decision you make, you can become a great leader. Right. The last one, okay, we stop there and we take, I think we have a last one here that talks about leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. But we just want to take the last word, very wise words from you, and sort of what will you say to our audience about the whole book and how can they develop leadership qualities, and to our leaders who might be listening to this?
I would like to say to everyone listening that for every public performance, there is a private practice. And you cannot be a great leader out there except you have within the four walls of your own heart and your own mind and your own heart developed yourself as a leader. You can't lead beyond your knowledge. No leader ever leads consistently beyond the knowledge they have. So the moment you start acquiring more knowledge and with the willingness to put it into practice, the better a leader you become. A learning leader is a lifelong learner. A learning leader is a lifelong learner. I will repeat that over and over again, that a learning leader would always learn. There is no point in your life that you're tired of learning. There's no point in your life that you're tired of reflecting. So get this. I would advise anybody who's interested, actually the paper copy of this second edition is $24.99, but the hard copy of it is £55. So let the leaders choose the content is the same, it's just the cover. let the leaders choose what they will. Within the pages of this book, you'll find models that help people build up their self-esteem. You have leaders building up their own mental toughness. It's within here. You have leaders building up the habits that make people successful. You have leaders right here understanding cultural intelligence and the four capabilities every leader needs within the multi-dimensional cultural setting we find ourselves. How to handle power and the rest of them, I have articulated them within this book. And I wish all the readers the very best. And I would love to see so many learning leaders in Africa. But up till now, I'm still searching.
Right. On that note, I want to say wala. Wala, wala, wala. Okay, that's from our own doctor, our own African wise and wisdom leader that is in search of a learning leader. And just to give credence to what he's doing, his book has actually been incorporated by a lot of universities in the UK. That shows there's a lot of information there. Trust me, I want you to go out and support. Yeah, you will learn a lot. And even if you're not reading it, give it to your leaders, and some of these questions will be resolved, because our leaders, some of them don't read because they're preoccupied with a lot of things. So perhaps you can help your leader by not only accusing him wrongly, or maybe we are meant to encourage them. They are also humans like us. So this is one way we can support actually our leaders. Sorry, guys. And so we end the show by just introducing another guest for next week. Is our own brother. This will be an exclusive interview with Festus Vandy. He is an electrical engineer and also innovator. So that will be next week. And so please tune in. He's a guy that has developed a vehicle that runs even faster than a Tesla car. who is number one. He's based here, but he's trying to go back to his country and start developing electric cars in Sierra Leone. You want to learn from his story. You want to learn from what he's doing. Now, but until then, if you want to contact me, please visit our website, www.thevictors.com. And also, you can or email me at ria@thevictors.com. If you want to visit Dr. Chuma's page, I will share that later. You can also go to his website and learn more from him. But I want to say it has been a pleasing pleasure to be with you tonight. And thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. I love you from the bottom of my heart. And good night. Have a blessed weekend.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
have a lovely evening.
You too, sir.
Thank you.
Bring it on, bring it on.
You the wonder and think, outside people then go get good training this time for make myself better in a life. I don't get the answer now, and listen, good one.
The place na the Canadian College of Modern Technology, we go give you all wetin go make you life better from book learning business.
The Canadian College of Modern Technology, they na the main Freetown Motor Highway na mile 91, na the Silicon Hills, opposite outside them been they call Camp Charlie.
Yes, na the place for better you life because the college there outside quiet and peaceful so that you go feel free for learn quick one.
Well, make I tell you more for make you go call it. The Canadian College of Modern Technology get first class local and international teacher them we get this sabi for teach you well because you go use the diploma and certificate all over the world.
The course them plenty. First of all, the college get second to none material them we make the college be master per information technology, particularly when that's the rule the world now. Again, self, first class mass communication department and business administration.
Yes, all and more day for help you be waiting will make you better in life. The modern solar power for give you light for 24 hours, water day, and you can tap na the hostel where get canteen.
The other good news, now if you register now and you able for meet all waiting the college want, like pay you fees and all other thing them inside the first 1 month, you go get one laptop computer free for help you by your book learning business, quick one.
So come on board now, make this opportunity not pass you. Can register now with the Canadian College of Modern Technology, na mile 91, na the Freetown Highway, for make life go better for you tomorrow and bye. For no more, contact them na 099 140 208, 079 630 407, and 025 343 175.
Or you can send an email na info@ccmtsl.com. That's na info@ccmtsl.com. Or you visit the website when at www.ccmtsl.com.
You can buy the application form na any Union Trust Bank all over the country.
Bring it on, are you ready?
Cotton Tree Pharmacy is your new trusted provider of pharmacy services in Sierra Leone. You can count on Cotton Tree Pharmacy for genuine quality brand name and generic medicines. Guaranteed refills for prescriptions issued by doctors in Sierra Leone or abroad. Door-to-door medication delivery service in Freetown and beyond. Free health education. Have you heard about our Diaspora Medicine Connect? With Cotton Tree Pharmacy's Diaspora Medicine Connect, anyone can pay for your prescription online. Bring your prescription to 17 Pademba Road. Collect an invoice. Send your invoice to your sponsor in the diaspora. Your sponsor pays for your prescription online. We deliver your medication to you. For quality prescription and medications, visit Cotton Tree Pharmacy at 17 Pademba Road in Freetown. Have questions? Call our pharmacist on WhatsApp at 030-611-664 or visit our website at www.cottontreemedicalgroup.com. Come to Cotton Tree Pharmacy. We are ready to fill your next prescription.
You can be my brother. You can be my friend. we care for each other. Holding on to the end. Oh, we got to
Heal the world and make it a better place.
oh, we got to
Change the world and give it a better face.
love is all we need.
Love is all we need.
Oh, love is all we need.
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 Oh, love is all we need.
Love is all we need. Why are we fighting? Why are we hating? Why are we killing? Oh, babe, you know love is the answer. You gotta make a little space. Oh, babe, we got to heal the world and make it a better place.
Oh, we got to
Change the world and give it a better face.
love is all we need.
Love is all we need.